If you know Linkin Park, you know Chester Bennington. His lyrics resonated with people of all ages and his performances were captivating. He had a special way of connecting with fans, bringing them into the music with him each time he sang. From being stalked by a high-tech hacker and studying while on 11 doses of acid to overcoming addiction and childhood abuse, Chester Bennington's life story encompasses more than the average person. His youth was far more carefree. When he turned 11 years old, his parents went through a divorce. Bennington had discussed how his family tragedy left him unprotected as a young adolescent.
And there was a lot of things that happened to me as a young person that were really difficult to deal with, and I found myself alone a lot, and so...
Growing up with his police detective father, Bennington had 3 siblings. However, only one was still living at home and he felt very disconnected from them. He has confessed that his lack of connection brought him to a place of isolation which didn't exactly make for an ideal childhood experience as he remembered. It was an awful time. I hated everybody in my family. I felt abandoned by my mom, my dad was not very emotionally stable then, and there was no one I could turn to. At least that's how my young mind felt. The only thing I wanted to do was kill everybody and run away. Despite the fact that abandonment issues were only one of Bennington's all-encompassing childhood problems, it is plausible to assume these issues added another layer to his difficulties since he didn't have anyone at home whom he could depend on. For Kerrang!, Tom Bryant interviewed Chester Bennington in 2008, and the Linkin Park singer candidly discussed his harrowing childhood experience of being abused by an older child. He shared, "I started getting molested when I was about 7 or 8. It was by a friend who was a few years older than me. It escalated from a touchy, curious, what does this thing do, into full-on crazy violations. It was getting beaten up and being forced to do things I didn't want to do. It destroyed my self-confidence." For young Bennington, the situation was harrowing and terrifying. What's worse is that he felt like he had no one to talk to about it. He confessed his fear of speaking out since many victims of abuse cite their silence as a result of being scared people might think they're lying or gay. This dread was especially acute for Bennington, who feared such discrimination even more so than others. Chester Bennington's ordeal of abuse persisted until he was 13 years old. He confessed that his addiction to drugs and alcohol was a means for him to escape the miserable experiences of his childhood. On top of all these difficulties, young Chester suffered from relentless bullying at school. In an effort to cope with it, unfortunately, he found solace in drugs.
Boy, I started using drugs when I was 11. So it was, I definitely wasn't making records at that time. So I was exposed to it really, really young, and there was a lot of things that happened to me as a young person that were really difficult to deal with, and I found myself alone a lot, and so it was. I think that given the nature of a lot of the aspects of my childhood, when that first person offered me, an escape from reality, I kind of took it and I ran with it,
As Bennington confessed to Louder in 2016, his drug usage during these early years was immense and had a devastating impact on his physical health. "I was on 11 hits of acid a day. I dropped so much acid I'm surprised I can still speak. I'd smoke a bunch of crack, do a bit of meth, and just sit there and freak out. Then I'd smoke opium to come down. I weighed 110 pounds. After his mother became aware of the state he was in at 17, Bennington managed to gradually overcome his dependency on hard drugs. Nonetheless, addiction continued to plague him for most of his life. Moreover, one particularly disconcerting episode occurred due to early substance abuse when a criminal gang invaded and violently pillaged a house where he was hanging out in. Upon realizing her son's drug addiction, Bennington's mother took drastic action and placed him on house arrest. Although he was able to break away from some substances, marijuana and alcohol were his new vices. The latter became a lifelong battle for him, of which he openly spoke about in interviews, describing himself as an alcoholic and admitting that the substance changed who he was. Hence why at one point during the interview he expressed his desire to distance himself from drinking altogether. "I choose to be sober now. I have drunk over the last 6 years, but I just don't want to be that person anymore." Despite his struggles, alcohol still had a presence in Bennington's life right up until the end. TMZ reveals that he had some alcoholic substances in his body when he died. Thanks to his honesty about this topic, many of those who knew him were aware of it too. In her book, Falling Love Notes, Memoirs of a Rockstar's Wife, Bennington's ex-wife exposed how right before his death, he sent her an MSS saying that he won't be able to see their son for some time, and she quickly assumed that Bennington was going into rehab. He also had a knack for getting injured. Throughout his musical journey, Chester Bennington faced multiple injuries during Linkin Park performances and tours. As reported by Digital Spy, in 2007 at a show in Australia, he tragically fell from the stage while performing, fracturing his arm. He was immediately attended to, yet still managed to complete the full concert despite undoubtedly being in immense pain. His strength of character and dedication was really inspiring considering all that he had been through. In 2011, Bennington endured a shoulder injury during Linkin Park's Asian tour and had to undergo surgery. Then again in 2015, NME reported that the singer had broken his ankle after unexpectedly landing on an errant water bottle while playing basketball during their Hunting Party World Tour. Loudwire revealed how he attempted to work through it with supporting devices, but eventually needed to put a stop due to the intensity of his injured ankle, prompting Linkin Park's official site to confirm they would be canceling the remainder of their tour.
I had to have 2 surgeries as a result of that debacle. Tore my labrum, had surgery, got really strong, was out in the crowd. Fan was trying to take the microphone. I pulled back, ended up pulling him and another person out with me. Tore my bicep tendon and had to have that removed, put somewhere else.
And as if all the troubles in his life weren't enough, he had to deal with a stalker. Wired uncovered a year-long ordeal of cyberstalking for Chester and his wife, Linda Bennington. The stalker commenced in 2006, bombarding the couple with off-putting phone calls and emails that oscillated between friendly to menacing. The stalker managed to gain access and control of multiple digital accounts belonging to the Benningtons. Subsequently, a private investigator was able to pinpoint the stalker's computer at Sandia National Laboratories, a highly secure nuclear research center. After an exhaustive investigation, it was determined that the perpetrator was none other than a 27-year-old employee with extensive security clearance in the facility. As reported by the Associated Press, this stalker employed a mix of detective work and her access to confidential data in order to discover all sorts of details about them. In 2017, she recalled an incident where after discovering Bennington's whereabouts in Arizona, she traveled there explicitly for the purpose of cyberstalking him with hopes that it would lead her directly to his location, enabling her to potentially meet him face to face. However, his marriage with Linda wasn't his first. Rolling Stone reported that Chester Bennington was an unknown 19-year-old when he married his first wife, Samantha Mary Allett. Though they went their separate ways in 2005, the exes stayed close enough to play a role in raising their son. As told to Kerrang! Magazine in 2009, Bennington revealed how difficult the divorce had been for him and admitted it caused immense turmoil in his life, saying, "The difficult part was losing all my money, starting my life over and having to pay the person I didn't want to be around in the first place. It felt like my life's work had been given away." A divorce can be a devastating experience that requires good coping mechanisms in order to make it through. Unfortunately, Bennington chose the wrong one: alcohol abuse. He also had to suffer from a medical condition called hiatal hernia. MTV News also reported that Chester Bennington suffered from a particular severe form of hiatal hernia, where stomach acid would enter the esophagus muscle, which was extremely painful and caused other challenges. His condition had been present for some time before it was correctly identified as a hiatal hernia, resulting in persistent back pain, gastrointestinal distress, and energy loss. At one point, his situation worsened to the extent that he developed an infection due to acidic contents within his throat, a serious complication when one relies on singing for a livelihood. As Linkin Park's 2003 tour cycle for Meteora intensified, it became clear that Bennington had to undergo surgery. He later described the situation at the time saying, "I'm kind of queasy all the time. I'm basically going to be sick to my stomach until I have the surgery done. Every night when I sing, it kind of pisses off the hernia. Last night I was vomiting when I was singing." Given the issues that Chester Bennington was dealing with in life, it is unsurprising that he endured depression. Rolling Stone reported how his mental health problems were openly discussed by him on 102.7 KIIS FM, which indicates how comfortable he felt discussing them publicly alongside conversations about music and parenting. It's inspiring to see someone be so candid and brave regarding their struggles, a reminder for us all not to stay silent but to confront our obstacles head on when necessary. To preserve his mental well-being and stay away from being bogged down by negative thoughts, he openly discussed the importance of self-affirmation. Additionally, he shared how keeping himself occupied was a crucial part of avoiding ruminating on difficult feelings too much. While talking with Cows TV, Sean Dowdle, a fellow musician from Bennington's old band Grey Days, spoke about what the singer's poorest mental health days looked like to those around him. As it turns out, mostly he was extremely positive, but there were certain times when his darker thoughts seemed to overpower him. According to Rolling Stone magazine, at these points in time, Bennington himself would refer to his inner darkness as an entirely different person inside of him. A second Chester, if you will. And his depression wasn't helped by the loss of a close friend. Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell had an unmistakable connection right from the start. After meeting during a tour in 2008, their relationship turned into something more than just friendship. They developed a strong bond that even encompassed both of their families. Bennington was greatly inspired by Soundgarden's singer Cornell when he was growing up, and eventually became the godfather of Cornell's son. According to him, it felt like an instant connection between the two of them, one which lasted until the very end. Unfortunately, their strong bond only endured for a short decade until Chris Cornell tragically passed away by suicide on May 18, 2017. According to Rolling Stone magazine, the Linkin Park singer honored his friend with an acoustic performance of Leonard Cohen's song Hallelujah at the funeral as a tribute. On July 20th, 2017, the world tragically lost Chester Bennington at 41 years of age due to suicide. After news outlets such as Associated Press broke the story on Twitter, Mike Shinoda, the Linkin Park co-vocalist, confirmed the heartbreaking situation through his own tweet. Shocked and heartbroken, but it's true. An official statement will come out as soon as we have one. His death brought forth an outpouring of love from people all around the globe, a testament to how powerful his music had been for so many years. Click like and share if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.